Subcommittee on the Coast Guard and Maritime Transportation will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chairman be authorized to declare a recess at any time during today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that members not on the subcommittee be permitted to sit with the subcommittee at today's hearing and ask questions. Without objection, so ordered. As a reminder, if members wish to insert a document into the record, please also email it to documentsti@mail.house.gov. I now recognize myself for the purpose of an opening statement for 5 minutes. We meet today to review the President's fiscal year 2026 budget request for the Federal Maritime Commission, or FMC. The FMC is an independent agency responsible for the regulation of ocean-borne transportation in the foreign commerce of the United States. They also protect shippers and carriers from unfair practices of foreign-flagged carrier alliances. The President's fiscal year 2026 budget request includes $40 million to fund the salaries, operations, and capital needs of the FMC. Today, we welcome our witness, Commissioner Rebecca Dye, welcome Commissioner of the Federal Maritime Commission, to discuss the President's fiscal year 2026 budget request, as well as the state of the ocean shipping industry and their ongoing work implementing the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 2022, also known as OSRAH. The FMC has worked diligently since the enactment of OSRA to implement its enhanced authorities, and I look forward to hearing from Commissioner Dye today on the status of FMC's efforts. Earlier this year, the FMC announced an investigation into vessel flagging laws, regulations, and practices of foreign countries. I fear these so-called flags of convenience create unfavorable shipping conditions in the foreign trade of the United States. Many vessels conducting international trade fly flags that differ from the nation where the ownership is based. The FMC is examining whether certain flag states may have standards that provide vessels with lower cost and oversight at the expense of reliability and safety. I look forward to hearing from Commissioner Dye on the progress of the investigation. In line with President Trump's executive order to restore American maritime dominance, we are working to bolster our domestic maritime capabilities, which are paramount to both the security and economic growth of our nation. I look forward to hearing from our witnesses on how the FMC plans to make United States maritime great again. Commissioner Dye, thank you for being here today. I now recognize Ranking Member Carbajal for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As usual, I'll defer to my time to Ranking Member Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ranking Member, for scheduling this hearing on the fiscal year budget for the Federal Maritime Commission. While a small agency, the FMC has a big role. It protects shippers and consumers by monitoring and taking action against unfair and uncompetitive foreign shipping practices. Ocean shipping is dominated by foreign shipping companies with U.S. flagged operations comprising less than 2% of imports and exports. The supply chain crisis associated with the pandemic and ongoing international conflicts demonstrate the need for robust oversight to ensure there is a fair playing field. Fluctuations in service and pricing are normal, but it is the role of the FMC to ensure these fluctuations are justified in a competitive market. The President's fiscal year 2026 budget request for the FMC is flat, and I look forward to hearing from our witness how the agency can ensure fair shipping with flat funding. The FMC has begun to use its new investigative and prosecutorial authorities provided under OSRA of 2022. I look forward to hearing an update on the implementation of these new authorities. And since the passage of the Reform Act, container prices have fallen and queues at ports have evaporated. The FMC has also improved its reporting process, leading to an increase in charge complaints from American businesses, one of which resulted in a $2 million settlement over findings that the shipping company knowingly and willfully violated the Shipping Act. This means lower costs for consumers thanks to the quick action and passage of this bill by Congress and signature by President Biden. These are positive trends, but I'm concerned this will be short-lived if the administration neglects the FMC. The FMC has lost nearly 20% of its workforce due due to the deferred resignation program and the ongoing hiring freeze. This means fewer investigators finding unfair shipping practices and fewer attorneys prosecuting cases. The FMC is also operating without 2 commissioners, and currently there is no chair. As a bipartisan, independent agency, the FMC's critical functions cannot be understated. I look forward to hearing from Commissioner Dye about ways to ensure a fair and competitive maritime supply chain and to build upon the successes we've seen so far. With that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. I would once again like to welcome our witness and thank her for being here today. Briefly, I'd like to take a moment to explain our lighting system to our witness. There are 3 lights in front of you. Green means go, yellow means you're running out of time, red means put on brakes. I ask unanimous consent that the witness' full statements be... Oh, okay. Mr. Carbajal, did you want to...
Sure.
Our chair now recognizes Mr. Carbajal.
Thank you, Chair Ezell, and for scheduling today's hearing on the future of the United States Maritime Part 1 review of the fiscal year 2026 Federal Maritime Commission budget request. I look forward to hearing from Commissioner Dye of the Federal Maritime Commission, or FMC as we know it, on the President's budget request and their agency's priorities for the upcoming year. In 2022, we worked hard to pass the Ocean Shipping Reform Act out of this subcommittee, which subsequently became law. I am particularly eager to hear about its implementation and how its new authorities have helped maintain a resilient and efficient supply chain. As a federal agency tasked with ensuring fairness for American shippers, carriers, and consumers, the FMC plays a crucial role in safeguarding transparency and enforcing equitable maritime commerce. According to the UN, over 80% of the world trade volume is carried over the ocean. In 2024, over 11% of the total U.S. GDP came from ocean shipping, which translates into over $4 trillion. In a global economy, the FMC is often our only referee for a fair shipping market. We know from recent history that weaknesses in our supply chain were exposed as landside port congestion and unfair shipping practices by foreign ocean carriers led to backlogs and price increases. This contributed to higher prices for Americans on almost everything they buy. The reforms in our bill strengthen the FMC's authority to investigate unfair fees and help facilitate the efficient movement of cargo through U.S. ports. I am proud to say that since the passage of the OSRA, vessel congestion at ports has decreased, and in 3 years since the enactment in 2022, and more than $5.8 million in fees have been waived or refunded in undue charges by carriers. In May of this year, the FMC launched an investigation into flagging practices of foreign governments, otherwise known as flags of convenience. These practices severely undermine flag states that employ rigorous standards, ensure fair pay, and provide basic human rights. I hope that the FMC will leverage every authority they have to address this systematic global problem. Further, the FMC is currently undertaking a rulemaking aimed at ensuring that exporters are given fair access to cargo space. It is important that the FMC is sufficiently funded so that it can properly carry out these reforms, which will greatly benefit American businesses and the American consumer. While I am pleased to hear about all the success that FMC has been having, I would be remiss if I did not mention my growing concern with the shortage of commissioners, the loss of employees to the deferred resignation program, and the lack of a chair for the agency. The absence of leadership threatens the positive momentum they have had so far. I look forward to a robust discussion about the FMC's ongoing actions, how they will ensure a strong maritime industry. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields. I ask unanimous consent that the witness' full statements be included in the record. Without objection, so ordered. I ask unanimous consent that the record of today's hearing remain open until such time as our witness has provided answers to any questions that may be submitted to them in writing. Without objection, so ordered. I also ask unanimous consent that the record remain open for 15 days for any additional comment and information submitted by members or witnesses to be included in the record of today's hearing. Without objection, so ordered. As your written testimony has been made part of the record, the subcommittee asks that you limit your oral remarks to 5 minutes. With that, Commissioner Dye, you are recognized for 5 minutes for your testimony.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Carbajal, members of the subcommittee. It's like coming home for me, and I very much appreciate your holding this hearing. And thank you so much for your interest in the responsibilities of the Federal Maritime Commission. As you're aware, my friend and colleague Lou Sola departed on June 30th, and we look forward to news of his future endeavors. There's been a smooth transition at the Federal Maritime Commission, and there will be consistency in dealing with shipping issues of importance to you and your constituents. I fully support the President's FY26 budget of $40 million for the Federal Maritime Commission. This will fund the FMC's mission and statutorily driven activity, as well as important technology investments. This level of funding reflects no change from the 25 enacted budget. As in past years, our budget is straightforward, with the majority of funding going to personnel, office space, and important information technology. We've budgeted $25.8 million for employee salary and benefits, a reduction from FY25 of $2 million. The Commission had 13 employees depart under the Deferred Resignation Program, the Voluntary Retirement Program. They'll be paid from the FMC budget until the end of '25. We're working with OPM for 6 exemptions to hire critical attorneys and economists in our flagship competition and enforcement programs, in line with the administration's 4-to-1 hiring ratio. Finally, that leaves rent and security services of $4.2 million, a slight increase of $150,000 from FY25. Also, $6 million has been budgeted for badly needed core IT operations and modernization. The remainder consists of all other budget requirements to support essential operational needs. This $40 million allows us to effectively carry out our mission, identifying and assertively investigating conduct that unlawfully disadvantages U.S. interests, essential to protect marketplace integrity. OSRA 22 has better prepared the FMC to meet the demands for its services and to respond to developments in the marketplace. Commission issued 2 OSRA 22 mandated final rules in 2024, detention and demurrage billing practices, and unreasonable refusal to deal with respect to vessel space. The 2 rulemakings remain to be completed are shipping exchange registry and certain outstanding elements of unfair or unjustly discriminatory methods. Although the 2 final rules are operational today, we're still involved in litigation over the final outcome. Section 10 of the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 22 established a new way for shippers to submit complaints to the Commission. These are regarding charges assessed by common carriers and to receive a refund or waiver for non-compliant charges. Most charge complaints were voluntarily resolved during the investigations phase, we're pleased to say. Next year, the FMC will propose a rulemaking for fast resolution of disputed charges, in which the ocean carrier is ordered to demonstrate the lawfulness of a charge. The Commission is guided by the purposes of one of the sections of the Shipping Act, including encourage an economically sound and efficient liner fleet of vessels of the United States, capable of meeting national security needs. I applaud President Trump for emphasizing the importance of both the U.S. military, U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. and commercial maritime sectors. We appreciate the Congress and the Commission's support and the Congress's support to fund the FMC at $40 million for FY26. Thank you. I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Thank you for your testimony. We'll now turn to questions from the panel. I will recognize myself for 5 minutes for questions. The global ocean shipping market is increasingly dominated by foreign state bad actors, bad carriers, particularly from China, which raises concerns about unfair competition and potential harm to U.S. mariners, shippers, and long-term supply chains operations. Does the Commission have enough resources to protect U.S. mariners and shippers from unfair practices by foreign state-sponsored carriers like those backed by the Chinese government?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We do. One of the advantages of a small agency, I have found, is that we are able to pivot much more quickly than giant organizations. And we have reorganized our competition office to combine our economists with our attorneys working on competition. And I've long supported this approach, and it will make us much more effective. We've also refocused our enforcement regime to make sure that we are using those resources effectively. So thank you very much. I'm confident that we'll be effective.
Very good. The Ocean Shipping Reform Act 2022, OSHRA, expanded the FMC's authority to regulate detention and demurrage practices, investigate discriminatory behavior by carriers, and enhance protections for shippers. Where is the FMC on OSRA implementation? When do you expect full implementation of OSRA? How have shippers benefited since the OSRA's passage?
As I reported, we have completed the two of the most important regulations, and we're awaiting to see the final court action on those. But today, ocean carriers are complying with those regulations.
Very good.
And we get good reports about the operation of those. We still are working on the exchange registry and the small remainder of the discriminatory regulation that we'll complete. We're also going to complete the new charge complaint regulation to make sure the public understands the approach. And we're in good shape in compliance with all the reports in OSRA as well.
Very good. The FMC recently launched an investigation into whether foreign vessels' flagging laws, regulations, and practices create unfavorable conditions for U.S. trade. What prompted this investigation? What practices are you concerned about that could undermine fair maritime trade?
Thank you. These authorities that I outlined in my statement for the record are advantageous to U.S. flagships. And we believe that it could provide a good grounding for U.S. vessel registry to know that if there are problems, the United States will go to bat for you. And this is one of them. Flags of convenience are really open registries. Panama, Marshall Islands, Liberia, and they accept registrations from owners of vessels who are outside their residence. The United States is a closed registry, and many other major ones are closed registries. There has been a concern that the open registries, the flags of convenience, are not as effective in enforcing regulations. And then in some ways, their enforcement has been pushed off onto port states like the United States. these fact findings, these investigations are very flexible. They can be stood up quickly. They do not have on their own authority to require violations or anything like that. But we'll get to the bottom of this, and then, of course, we'll inform the Coast Guard.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you.
Now recognize, who's next? Mr. Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Dye, according to the budget request, most of the rulemakings have been completed as part of the OSRA. Can you report on the progress of the remaining rulemakings?
On the remaining rulemakings?
Remaining rulemakings, yeah.
We have made good progress on exchanges. We have a couple things to check out before we can complete this registration process. And the remaining discrimination parts that were not addressed in the refusal to deal rule we've begun those as well.
And do you have a timeline, a prospective timeline, a hopeful timeline?
I would say as soon as we can turn our attention to it.
Yeah. Related to that, we know the FMC's lost employees, and by our count, it's about 20%. And whether it's 20% or 19% or 21%, it's a lot. Doesn't make much difference. Has that? Could you outline the impacts the loss of those folks and not then replacing folks has had on the work of the FMC?
Well, as I reported, we are working with OPM on an exception for six employees, not new hires, but to replace people who have left.
Mm-hmm.
We believe with those that we'll be in good shape.
Yeah. And what is do you sense there's progress on getting those new hires getting them hired?
That we want authority to hire those six.
Okay.
To replace. As they say, we don't really consider those new hires.
Okay.
Because they're.
I understand. I'm not arguing that point. It's more about whether OPM is being helpful in
Very much.
moving that forward.
Very much.
Yeah. And are there people at OPM, enough people at OPM to help you do that? Do you feel like you're getting the service you need from OPM to get that done?
They will grant us the exemption to hire. Of course, the head of agency, which my general counsel informs me that we have plenty of authority, the three of us, to make decisions and to operate. And we'd have to, of course, we'd have to oversee any hirings.
Yeah. Are you then looking at whether or not the being short that number of folks is impacting the length of time it takes you to do any one investigation, the length of time it takes you to manage your rulemaking?
No. I think that we're, and I think my colleagues agree that we're in good shape.
Yeah. Finally, Section 10 of the OSRA established the charge complaint process.
Right.
And according to your budget request, the FMC is ordered to return over $2.5 million in refunds or canceled fees. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about why you're returning those?
Well, we had I think a little over $5 million that was returned. But as I said, the good news is that when the process began, many of the fees were returned voluntarily.
Mm-hmm. How would you rate that as a marker of the success of the enforcement program? In general, how would you rate the success of the enforcement program?
I think that some people believe they write a regulation or you pass a law, and it's effective. and people obey it. And if that were true, then there wouldn't need to be any law enforcement agencies. So it takes, especially when there's a big change, it takes time and resources and commitment. Demurrage detention charges are internationally despised.
Yeah.
And when we waded in on this, we knew it would be a hard slog. It's not over, but I think that we've had remarkable compliance so far, and we'll keep at it. I've said to my advisory committee, can't you think of a better way to get fluidity or encourage fluidity than these awful charges? There must be a better approach because it's the clunky type of
Thank you.
service.
I'm sure one of the parents of OSRA 22 will have more questions. Mr. Garamendi will have more questions.
I'll look forward to
I'll
it.
yield back. Yeah.
Gentleman yields. Chair now recognizes Mr. McDowell for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Dye, for being here. It's good to have another North Carolinian in the room today. But Commissioner, you stated that the FMC's budget request for FY 2026 is $40 million, which is level funding from fiscal year 25.
Yes.
And so within that budget, can you explain why you've set aside more funding for rent and security services and why your resources needs are different from last year?
Well, the biggest change in this budget is that we are dedicating more resources to IT. We were in the position that we literally could not buy parts for our system because they weren't made anymore. And so we're pleased that we were able to devote more to those systems that will also benefit our shipping public.
Sure.
But you mean the $150,000? Well, security costs have gone up, and I think they went up.
Sure.
The prices increased.
Yeah. How does your commitment to carrying out the commission's core objectives play into your budgeting process?
I support the $40 million. As I said, this is level funding. We didn't get cut, which I think speaks well for our mission and our approach. I'm convinced that with our reorganizations and refocusing that we've done, that we will be fine. Thank you.
Can you explain further how the Ocean Shipping Reform Act changed the FMC's operations?
Well, we had a couple of rulemakings to accomplish. Some of the reports we have learned some very valuable information, and I support the bill, and I think that the Reform Act has helped us, especially with the charge complaints, have helped the shipping public deal with a lot of the charge.
Gentlelady will you suspend? Could you speak into the microphone just a little more, please? I'm hard of hearing, and I can't hear you.
No, I understand the
There you go.
acoustics are great.
Thank you.
Well, there you are. Is that better? Well, good. I hear myself better, too. Thank you.
Just to I'll ask you another question, but the commission has relatively broad authority to investigate unfavorable or anti-competitive shipping practices of foreign flag vessels. Generally, what are the most common scenarios that require the commission to intervene?
Well, I think that I'm not able to talk a lot about the existing
Sure.
investigations. But those examples in my statement were good ones. Any time that the U.S. flag is disadvantaged, then as we have intervened for the Great Lakes carriers, certain carriers who were denied entry into Spanish ports, I support those, and this fact-finding authority is proved to be very valuable for us.
So has the number of complaints increased or decreased since the Ocean Shipping Reform Act of 22?
Well, allowing the charge complaints has been very valuable, and it's allowed our shipping public an avenue to quickly resolve some charges with the FMC overseeing it, and that's been effective.
Well, thank you, ma'am, and Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields. Mr. Carbajal, recognized, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Dye, I'm a strong supporter of the FMC and want to focus all my questions today on the recently announced flag of convenience investigation. Why did the FMC decide to initiate the investigation? In other words, what is the potential risk to Americans?
And this is which one?
The investigation that you recently opened, the flag of convenience.
Oh, I think that without talking about the reasoning, but I think that one, as well as the others, is the facts that we develop will be worth any argument on the issue.
What's the potential risk to Americans?
For
The reason why you opened up this investigation?
for the risk is to any U.S. flag vessel, or the detriment.
Thank you. And what practices have foreign countries participated in that have resulted in the degradation of U.S. flag shipping?
Wait, and I'm so sorry. I'm having trouble hearing you distinguish.
Okay, let me say that again. What practices have foreign countries participated in that have resulted in the degradation of U.S. flag shipping?
The investigation in Spain, of course, has been, there have been vessels, U.S. flag vessels that have been turned away. And the other fact findings are obviously, we had a good result with the Great Lakes carriers, and they were most pleased that we got involved. Our general counsel was able to work with the State Department, and that was an excellent result for them. And then the others are facts that may be useful in the future to U.S. flag vessels, especially concerning our registry and how we may decide to change a U.S. flag registry in the future.
As a strong supporter of the U.S. Merchant Marine and the U.S. flag vessels, what actions are available to the FMC should you find that the use of flags of convenience have resulted in unfair shipping practices?
Yes, well, at some point, even the president could become involved in taking action against foreign country. The remedies are slightly different for each of these if a violation is found. And of course, the fact findings that we're conducting now don't have preceding authority. But at this stage, we're finding facts in preparation for another proceeding if We develop the evidence.
But what are some of the actions that you can take?
Their ships could be prohibited from our ports. There are some monetary penalties, but they're slightly different for each one.
Commissioner Dye, I must say I'm disappointed with the administration's budget request. If Congress were to increase the FMC's budget and you were able to rehire the 26 people that have been lost, what would that mean for the effectiveness of the agency? What kind of work would they be doing?